Two wars, two sides, and now they're meeting in the same place. Ukraine and Russia have been bleeding each other dry for over 2 years. Drones, missiles, trenches, air defense systems. Every tactic, every weapon, every lesson learned on that battlefield. But here's what nobody's talking about. Those same tactics, those same weapons, that same war is now showing up in the Middle East. And the two sides, they followed. Here's what's really happening right now. US and Israeli forces launched nearly 900 strikes in just the first 12 hours of what Washington called Operation Epic Fury. The opening salvo took out Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and triggered a torrent of hundreds of retaliatory missiles and thousands of drones from Iran across the region. Gulf states that had nothing to do with launching this war, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, suddenly found Iranian drones raining down on their oil refineries, their desalination plants, their airports. And the moment that happened, two countries that aren't even in the Middle East made their move. Ukraine, the country fighting for its survival against Russia, began building military relationships with Arab states. Anti-drone technology. Training. Battlefield experience. Things they learned the hard way against Russian drone swarms over Kiev and Kharkiv. They're now sharing that knowledge. At the same time, on the other side of this equation, Russia deepened its military partnership with Iran. Air defense systems, intelligence sharing, weapons, strategic cooperation. Into that tinderbox, Russia handed Iran some very dangerous matches, while Ukraine handed the other side a fire extinguisher. Two rivals, opposite corners, same arena. This isn't just a Middle East conflict anymore. Iran didn't just show up in 2026 with a drone program. They built it over years, and they built it with Russia. Russia and Iran have been cooperating for at least the last 3 years on missile and drone technology, with Iran providing Russia with Shahed drones and short-range ballistic missiles to target Ukraine, and helping set up a massive drone factory to pump out Iranian-designed drones inside Russia. So Russia learned how to use Iranian drones by launching them at Ukrainian cities. And Iran watched how Russia used them, thousands at a time, to overwhelm air defenses. Now Iran is using those exact same tactics in the Middle East. The Iranian tactics appear to resemble Russia's air campaign in its war with Ukraine. Swarms of drones hitting infrastructure, followed by ballistic missile attacks. Think about that. The war in Ukraine was a live training ground, and now the Middle East is the exam. But Ukraine saw this coming, because they've been failing and passing that exam every single night for 4 years. Let's talk about what Russia is actually doing right now. Russia is providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces in the Middle East. The first indication that another major US adversary is participating, even indirectly, in the war. Much of the intelligence Russia has shared with Iran has been imagery from Moscow's sophisticated constellation of overhead satellites, warship locations, aircraft movements, base coordinates, fed directly into Iran's strike planning. And the weapons pipeline goes deeper. After the Israelis decimated Iran's air defenses in the 12-day war last year, Moscow struck a deal to provide Tehran with Verba man-portable air defense systems. Russia was rebuilding what Israel tore down, quietly, piece by piece. But here's a clue about why. A senior Russian source said, the escalation in and around Iran in the Gulf is already diverting attention from the war in Ukraine. That's just a fact. Everything else is just emotion about a fallen ally. Read that again slowly. Russia doesn't need to fire a single bullet in the Middle East. All it needs is for America to be stretched, militarily, financially, politically, across 2 theaters simultaneously. Keep America looking south, so it stops looking east. Politico reported that Russia offered to stop supporting Iranian targeting if the United States stopped supporting Ukrainian targeting. That's not neutrality, that's blackmail with a smile. Now flip to the other side. The moment Iranian drones started hitting Gulf refineries, Ukraine picked up the phone. Ukrainian counter-drone experts deployed in the region, providing expert assistance to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan. The Arab nations of the Persian Gulf are eagerly seeking Ukrainian help because Kiev's forces have dealt with exactly the same type of threat for 4 years. And it's not just advisors. Zelensky confirmed that 228 Ukrainian drone specialists have deployed to 5 countries: Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Jordan. If you're finding this analysis useful, hit like and subscribe. This story is only getting bigger. Zelensky said Ukraine has already signed 10-year security agreements with Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and expects to shortly finalize a similar agreement with the UAE. 10-year agreements. This isn't emergency assistance. This is Ukraine planting a strategic flag in the Gulf. And why are Gulf states so desperate for Ukrainian help specifically? Because expensive doesn't always mean effective. Ukrainian officials discovered multiple deficiencies in US and Gulf states' air defense, including the excessive use and waste of expensive missiles. The Patriot system is extraordinary, but it fires a missile worth over $1 million to shoot down a drone worth $35,000. Do that 1,000 times and the math collapses. Zelensky said it plainly. Does it protect against hundreds of Shaheds? We know that no, it is not a working model. Ukraine's answer? Interceptor drones. Counter drones that cost $2,000 to kill a drone that costs $35,000. A completely different equation. And right now, that equation is being deployed across 5 Gulf countries simultaneously. Here's what doesn't make front-page headlines. When Ukraine forms a defense technology partnership with a Gulf state, it's not just about drones. It's about building relationships that could mean future weapons deals, political support, and a seat at the table in a region where Ukraine desperately wants allies. And when Russia deepens its partnership with Iran, it's not just about drones either, it's about oil. About sanctions evasion routes. About building an alternative global order that doesn't depend on Western approval. Iran sells oil to Russia's friends. Russia provides cover in the UN Security Council for Iran. They move money through shared networks. They test weapons in shared conflicts. They are building something together. And what they're building is being tested right now, in real time, against Israel, against US forces across the Middle East, against the entire Western-backed order in the region. Look at what just happened at the UN. China, France, and Russia objected to draft resolution language that would authorize the use of military force to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Russia blocking Hormuz at the UN, while its oil profits surge because prices just went vertical. The disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz drove up oil prices, increased Russia's revenues, and indirectly supported its war effort in Ukraine. So while Ukraine fights to keep the Gulf safe, the chaos in the Gulf is funding the Russian war machine bombing Ukrainian cities. Does that even make sense? It does. When you understand this was never just about Iran. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. This is Ukraine versus Russia. Again, just with different flags. On one side, Ukraine. Its soldiers, its drones, its technology, deployed across 5 Gulf countries, defending US allies, fighting Iranian drones that were originally built to kill Ukrainians. On the other side, Russia, its satellites, its intelligence, its targeting data, feeding into Iran's strike systems, helping drones find US warships and bases. Zelensky described Russia and Iran as brothers in hatred during a 17 March 2026 address to the British Parliament. Brothers in hatred. That's the phrase. One theory is that Russia calculated this perfectly: bleed America in the Middle East, profit from oil prices, watch US attention drift from Ukraine, buy time. Another possibility is this wasn't fully planned. Russia simply took every opportunity it could once the war started. Opportunistic rather than orchestrated. But there's a darker explanation. Britain's defense minister claims Russia and Iran have been working together, sharing tactics, training, and tech. If that's true, if this was a coordinated strategy between Moscow and Tehran from the beginning, then the world isn't looking at a regional conflict. It's looking at a new axis, being tested in real time. Here's where things start to fall apart. The US and Israel are widening their attacks on Iran, hitting infrastructure in and around the capital. Iranian state media said a US fighter jet was shot down over central Iran, and the US military launched a search and rescue operation. A US fighter jet shot down over Iran. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth abruptly fired the US Army's top general and 2 other senior officers, prompting speculation of a wartime leadership shakeup. Firing generals in the middle of a war. That's not a sign of confidence. US defense and intelligence officials told lawmakers in a closed-door briefing that the use of ground troops had not been ruled out. Ground troops in Iran. Think about what that means. And on the other side of the world, Ukraine is watching all of this with deep concern. Analysts have warned that prolonged fighting in the Middle East could lead to a shortage of Patriot interceptors for Ukrainian forces at a time when Russia continues its campaign against Ukrainian cities. The same war, bleeding from both ends. At the same time, here's what we know for certain. Ukraine versus Russia never ended. It just expanded. The drones are the same. The tactics are the same. The two sides are the same. The only thing that changed is the map. Trump administration officials have offered diverse and changing explanations for starting this war. To preempt Iranian retaliation, to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, to prevent a nuclear weapon, to secure oil resources, and to achieve regime change. 5 different explanations for the same war, still ongoing. And if nobody can agree on why it started, nobody agrees on when it ends. Because right now, there are 3 possible answers. Iran breaks. A deal gets made. Ukraine gets Patriot missiles in return for its help. Russia loses its most important partner, and for once the right side wins. Or, the war grinds on. The strait stays dangerous. Oil prices stay high. Russia profits. America is exhausted, and Ukraine keeps bleeding. On 2 fronts simultaneously. Or, someone miscalculates. A US warship goes down, ground troops go in, and what started as a regional war becomes something no one has a name for yet. The Ukraine war never stayed in Ukraine. And this war? It was never just about Iran.